6 unexplained deaths, one woman, and her unrelenting faith. What to many is a guiding light, by many is also exploited. What happens when the very thing that gives people hope becomes the very weapon used against them? This is the story of K.D. Kempamma, India's first convicted female serial killer. This is the story of Cyanide Mallika. Hi everyone, welcome to the Desi Crime Podcast, a show where we dive deep into some of the craziest cases from around South Asia. I'm your host Aryan.
And I'm Ishwarya.
And the case that we have for you today is one that made history, one that is at par with the crazy case of Jolly Amma Joseph.
Aryan, India is a country with so many cyanide cases, right? That I personally have chosen not to cover any, and I'm glad you've taken
I've taken the cyanide onus. Yeah.
I just feel like, it's so common. Matlab, anyone wants to commit murder in India, generate cyanide from somewhere. And it's such a common trope in like CID episodes and stuff. So I've personally never gravitated to those.
But again, as goes with most cliches, they're a cliche for a reason. And even the field of forensics and murders, there's a reason why this modus operandi is, one that killers like. Because cyanide is so easy to procure, sometimes goes undetected if not caught at the right time. It's a great, great way to get that job done.
Aren't like apple seeds known for generating cyanide?
They have
Is
cyanide
that like
in
a
them.
trope?
It's a trope. They can.
Okay, so if you accumulated enough apple seeds and grind them together.
A lot of apple seeds and extract the cyanide in a correct way. Yeah.
So enough apple seeds. Don't keep the doctor away.
Please don't demonetize this video. This is not educational information. Do not try at home.
Do not try at home.
Speaking of which, a word from our sponsors for the day, without whom this podcast wouldn't be possible. Often cases at Desi Crime revolve around love that went awry, love that didn't work out, and paints this gloomy image of the landscape of relationships, of dating. And the sponsor for today actually just reminds us that, hey, it's not all that bad. Yeah, I mean, we have some weirdos and creepazoids and whatnot, but for the relationships that work and for those people trying to make relationships work, I think
there's a lot of love out there.
There's a lot of love out there, and to spice that love up, I don't think there's a product better than My Muse. My Muse has these amazing board games and toys that you can use to just spice up and make any relationship that much more fun.
That much more loving too. And this is the season of love. It's Valentine's season. All of you guys that are in relationships, I'm sure you're all lovey-dovey.
It's the season to be lonely. La 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 la.
For the single people, this is your anthem. But for those of you who are in loving, happy relationships, My Muse has the best products for this season. Go to mymuse.in, use code DESI10 at checkout for 10% off your order for the perfect Valentine's Day gift or the perfect Valentine's Day date ideas. It's all on there.
Ash, so many of my friends are asking for free products because they know we work with them and they're like, leech. Don't be cheap like my friends. Buy them. Chapter 1. Mamta Ranjan. October 99 begins like any other month for Mamta Ranjan. At 30 years old, she has been married for 7 years now, carrying a longing that has grown unbearable, the desperate desire for a child. In the late 90s India, motherhood was not just a personal choice, it was a sacred duty, a societal milestone. A child, especially a son, completed a family and secured a woman's place within it. For Mamta, years of unsuccessful attempts had transformed her hope into despair, each failed prayer weighing heavier on her spirit. Then, on a day that feels destined, she clings to one final hope: divine intervention. She prepares meticulously, as though presenting herself before the gods will manifest her long-awaited miracle. With renewed faith, she sets out for the Jaligarama temple, a temple that hums with devotion. Pilgrims are everywhere, and among them, Mamta navigates the sacred space, her eyes filled with silent pleas for divine mercy. It is amidst this charged atmosphere that she encounters an enigmatic woman who seems to appear out of nowhere. Draped in a modest yet immaculate sari, the older woman exudes warmth and quiet authority. She introduces herself as Lakshmi. Her demeanor is disarming, her presence magnetic. She began talking to Mamta, offering kind words and a listening ear. Vulnerable and yearning, Mamta clung on to Lakshmi, anybody to hear her out. As their conversation deepens, Mamta confides in her newfound confidant, pouring out her fears, struggles, and her desperate longing for a male child. Lakshmi listens intently. When she finally speaks, her words carry a mysterious divine promise. She proposes a solution, a sacred ritual called the Mandala Puja. This ceremony, she claims, is a bridge between earthly desires and divine blessings, known for fulfilling even the most impossible dreams. Lakshmi's conviction is absolute, igniting a spark of hope in Mamta that she has not felt in years. Without hesitation, Mamta agrees. Lakshmi provides detailed instructions, emphasizing the ritual's need for absolute privacy. Mamta must send her family away and prepare her home as a sacred space. In the days that follow, she follows every instruction to the T, ensuring everything is perfect for the ceremony that promises to change her life. On the appointed evening, Lakshmi arrives, carrying flowers, fruits, brass utensils, and other sacred items. The room transforms into a sanctum of devotion. As Lakshmi, almost entranced, chants prayers, a mesmerized Mamta sits with that same unwavering faith, a faith born out of desperation. The air grows heavy with that unspoken promise of a son. As the ritual reaches its crescendo, Lakshmi presents a small bowl filled with liquid, calling it, quote, holy water. Her voice calm but firm, she instructs Mamta to drink it immediately, warning that any hesitation will render the ritual powerless. Trusting fully, Mamta obeys. She swallows the liquid, her mind consumed with visions of the child she so desperately longs to hold. A sharp pain seizes her chest. Before she can react, Lakshmi clamps her nose and mouth shut. Mamta gasps for air, her eyes widening in panic. Is this part of the ritual? Is this what holy water does? Her struggles grow weaker, and Lakshmi watches, her kind face twisting into a cruel sneer. When Mamta's body finally goes still, she moves quickly, stripping her of her gold earrings, toe ring, finger ring, and chain. With calculated precision, she lays Mamta's lifeless body on its side, facing the wall, then slips away into the night, unnoticed.
Aryan, obviously there is a special place in hell for killers, murderers. There is an extra special place in hell for people who exploit other people's faith and religion. And there is an even higher place in hell for people who exploit someone's vulnerability in their marriage or their vulnerability in having a child combined with their faith and devotion to do this. This is just, it's crazy to me that someone can do this in good conscience.
Yeah, no, Ash, and I recently, came across this. It's sometimes so difficult to quite understand how vulnerable people make very, very silly decisions. I was in a situation recently where a burgeoning vulnerability of mine, something I've been thinking about, came up, and somebody I trusted suggested a cure, and the cure this treatment was more expensive than it should have been. I would have never taken it in my sane mind, but in that moment, because I trusted him, and I'm like, okay, whatever helps. And I went back home and I was like, oh my god, what a waste of money. I've never ever spent. I'm not a frivolous spender, but I gave in. I caved. This is 10 times that. This is vulnerability of the most deep, primordial sense of wanting a child. And it's so easy to exploit people. The next morning, neighbors discover Mamta's motionless body. She lies on the floor, her expression eerily serene, as if still caught in prayer. The sacred ritual was a facade, and the woman she trusted turned her faith into a weapon. The holy water didn't give her a life, but took hers instead. Chapter 2. Elizabeth Pereira. Nestled in the rugged terrain of Ramanagar, a district in southern Bangalore famous for its Mysore silk, the Kabalama temple stands as a beacon of devotion. Now, for all of our South listeners, I tried looking up as many pronunciations I could, and the ones that I remember and the ones that I could find, I try my best. So if I make a gaffe, let us know in the comments. But I'm going to try my best, and this is a disclaimer. Now, this temple has whitewashed walls that shine against the fading dusk, and behind the temple, the ancient stone hill loomed, casting long, eerie shadows that stretched over the complex, watching silently as daylight melts into twilight. Elizabeth Pereira, an elderly woman from Banaswadi, Bangalore, arrives at the temple's gates and a photograph clenched tightly in her hand. The image speaks of her sorrow. Even before her trembling lip scan, her granddaughter Ananya Pereira has been missing for over 4 weeks. Driven by despair, Elizabeth has visited countless places of worship, her hope dwindling with each passing day. But tonight, her journey brings her here, to the temple known for its tales of miracles. She pauses at the entrance, glancing up at the imposing hill that watches over the temple. Ananya's laughter echoes in her mind, a bittersweet memory colliding with the harsh reality of her absence. Taking a deep breath, Elizabeth steps inside. The goddess Kabalamma, adorned with garlands and flickering lamps, commands the devotee's attention. Elizabeth kneels before the idol, her frail hands clasped tightly in prayer. Tears roll freely down her cheeks, her lips silently forming desperate pleas. Please let me find her. Please let me find her. From the shadows of a pillar, a woman watches Elizabeth intently. Dressed in a simple yet elegant sari, she introduces herself as Mallika, appearing unassuming, though there was something cunning about her gaze. After a moment, she steps forward and approaches the grieving woman. Elizabeth, startled by the sudden presence, looks up. Mallika's expression is one of concern, and though her words are lost amidst the temple's distant bells and murmurs, her body language conveys empathy. She gestures towards a quieter corner, where Elizabeth hesitates before following, her guard beginning to lower. As the temple crowd thins with the settling sun, Mallika leads Elizabeth to a secluded area behind the temple. The location is quiet. Mallika's demeanor shifts as she begins to set up for a ritual, her movements precise and deliberate. Brass utensils glint under the fading light as Mallika arranges them carefully. She applies sandalwood paste and kumkum powder to the idol she has brought, all the while murmuring chants that seem both rehearsed and improvised. Elizabeth Pereira, who's a Christian, sits cross-legged, unaware of what's going on, her hands folded in prayer. With each passing moment, the weight of her despair seems to lift, replaced by a fragile glimmer of hope. For the first time in weeks, she feels the possibility of a miracle. The ritual concludes with Mallika offering a piece of Mysore pak, a dessert, insisting it is a crucial part of the process. Elizabeth, though hesitant due to her health, accepts the sweet offering. When she bites into the prasad, she can see Ananya in her mind's eye, and the night goes silent. The next morning, the temple awakens to its usual buzz of activity. Incense fills the air as devotees stream in, their voices blending into a meditative hum. But the peace shatters with a piercing scream. It is 6:30 in the morning, and a crowd gathers near a secluded corner behind the temple. Elizabeth Pereira's lifeless body lies still, her sari disheveled and her modest jewelry gleaming faintly in the morning light. Sin was committed on these holy grounds yet again.
Swaran, she wasn't missing her jewelry.
She wasn't missing her modest jewelry. Anything of importance was gone.
Oh, was gone.
Yeah, anything that was worthless was...
That's crazy.
Yeah. Chapter 3. Yashodhama. The community barely had time to process the horror of Elizabeth Pereira's body being found behind the temple before new whispers took hold. The same darkness that loomed over her death lingered in Yelahanka, where another life was about to be claimed. Imagine this, the air hanging heavy with antiseptic and despair outside a government hospital. An elderly woman in her 60s steps out, her frail frame weighed down by chronic asthma. Every breath is a battle, each wheeze a constant reminder of her struggle. The nebulizer inside gave her fleeting relief, but outside, the polluted air tightens around her lungs. She reaches the bus stand and settles onto a bench, clutching her bag of medicines. Her eyes scan the road, searching for a ride home. A stranger sits beside her, striking up a conversation. Polite, casual, almost comforting. Just another passing encounter, or so it seems. The elderly woman speaks of her asthma, her years of suffering, the endless cycle of hope and disappointment. The stranger listens intently, nodding at the right moments, feeding into the woman's vulnerability. Then, with the confidence of a seasoned storyteller, the stranger weaves a tale. A miracle cure, holy water from a revered temple, a man once plagued by asthma now breathing freely as if his illness had never existed. A spark of hope flickers into the woman's weary eyes. She has spent a lifetime battling her condition, worn down by failed treatments and false promises. Desperation makes her receptive, and the stranger knows it. Mallika says, quote, "Faith moves mountains, and what is asthma in the face of faith?" End quote. The offer is simple. a trip to the temple, an overnight stay, and a sacred ritual to unlock the healing power of the water. The stranger presents herself as a kind soul, a granddaughter in spirit, determined to help the suffering woman find peace. They travel together to Tumkur, where the temple stands like a beacon of hope. The elderly woman feels a quiet reassurance as they arrive. The stranger rents a modest room, urging her to stay the night for the ritual. Quote, "Preparation is necessary," she explains. Excitement replaces doubt, and for the first time in years, the woman breathes a little easier. Night falls, and the ritual begins. The stranger insists Yashodhama wear all her jewelry, an auspicious gesture for the blessings to come. The woman obeys, unwavering in her belief. In the dim light, the stranger produces a plastic bottle, its contents shimmering faintly. "Holy water," she whispers. The ceremony unfolds in dramatic fashion, chants filling the air, gibberish to the untrained ear, yet convincing in its rhythm. The elderly woman closes her eyes, surrendering to faith. The stranger moves closer, tilting the woman's head back. The water trickles into her mouth, a final act of trust. She drinks, willingly, expecting salvation. But salvation never comes. By morning, the room is silent. The elderly woman is gone, both from the world and from the stranger's life. Only the absence of her jewelry tells the story of her tragic end. Chapter 4. Muniyamma. Just 5 days after the chilling death of Yashodhama, a new victim falls prey to the same merciless killer. This time, it is Muniyamma, an innocent woman, driven by, you guessed it, faith, who becomes the next to suffer at the hands of a woman who lures her with promises of divine blessings. Muniyamma, in her late 50s, is a woman devoted to her faith, a God-fearing soul with a heart full of hope. When she meets Lakshmi, it feels like destiny. Lakshmi promises a ritual, the Mandala Puja, that will bring her divine blessings. It's an offer all too tempting for Muniyamma to receive. With a trusting heart, she agrees to go on a pilgrimage with Lakshmi. They travel together to the renowned Siddheshwara Swami temple in Yediyur, a place known for its peaceful atmosphere and spiritual energy. They arrive at the temple on December 15, 2007, and the surroundings, lush greenery, sacred grounds, do little to suggest the horror that will unfold behind its walls. Lakshmi, posing as a devoted daughter, rents room 28 in the Parvati block for 3 nights, paying in full. On the register, she marks herself as a daughter. To the temple staff, they are nothing more than pilgrims seeking blessings. But what awaits them in that room is far from holy. At precisely 12:30 in the afternoon, Lakshmi leads Muniyamma to the rented room. The space shouts peace. Coconuts, lemons, and sandalwood are arranged carefully on the floor, a symbol of the ritual that's meant to be performed. Muniyamma, trusting as ever, kneels, closes her eyes, and begins to pray, offering her hopes to the divine. But as she prays, Lakshmi prepares something far more sinister. In her hands, Lakshmi holds a small vial of cyanide, a poison that will steal Muniyamma's life in a matter of minutes. With her eyes shut tight in devotion, Muniyamma never saw it coming. Lakshmi swiftly forces the cyanide into her mouth. This time around, no pretense of holy water. The pure poison worked rapidly, suffocating her before she could even react. The prayer turns to silence, just as it had with all other victims, each one unknowingly walking into the same fate, their faith betrayed in the same unforgiving manner. The room, once holding promises of divine blessings, now holds the stillness of death. As Muniyamma's body lies lifeless on the floor, Lakshmi shows no sign of panic. Calmly, methodically, she strips Muniyamma of her jewelry, the Mangalya chain, the gold earrings, the large ring that Muniyamma had worn so proudly. She even takes Muniyamma's mobile phone, removing any trace of identity. Once everything of value is taken, Lakshmi locks the door from the outside and slips away into the temple crowd, leaving Muniyamma's body to be discovered days later. It isn't until 3 days later, on December 18th, that the truth begins to surface.
Aryan, temples are not desolate locations.
No.
They are so crowded.
Yeah.
And these sound like famous temples known for miracles, this, that, the other thing, right? What are these empty rooms and back alleys in these temples that nobody is walking in on?
Okay, so funnily, couple of things. A, temples aren't temple staff aren't used to murders.
Correct.
Right?
I'm sure.
It's the last thing Like the idea, even in mafia families in New York, you would never commit a crime,
In
no
a
matter
church.
where. In a church, you wouldn't carry a gun. Like that's how strict they were. So there is places of worship around the world. There is a sanctity that one
Even
would never
criminals
assume.
don't
Even
violate.
criminals don't violate, right?
Right.
So that's why this is so. It's bewildering.
No, I'm just wondering why no one is walking in
The
these
second,
rooms.
Aishwarya, these temples are enormous. They are huge temples, and these rooms are ashram rooms, sort of, that are given for lodging, that pilgrims can stay
see.
overnight. So nobody, like, if she paid for that room for 3 whole days, right? So nobody would disturb them for 3 days, right? If she is paid in full.
Right.
So also in the back alleys you talk about, Ash, I've gone to some like really big temples in all over India. Huge. I mean, back alleys galore. Yeah, I mean, there is so much space to do whatever you want to. But again, it's a temple, so nobody does any of that over there.
And do we know anything about this criminal's faith? Are we getting to that?
The criminal's faith, while of course Hindu, she belongs to a Hindu family. I don't
Not
think
devout.
No,
this is the opposite of devout.
I think
this is not devout.
Yeah,
This is
I think she gave up religion a long time ago.
Right.
Temple staff report a foul smell coming from room 28. The temple secretary, Madhav, along with the caretaker, Venkatesh, go to investigate. The door, locked from the outside, is forced open using a spare key. And what they find is horrifying. Muneyamma's body lies on the floor, surrounded by the remnants of a ritual that was never completed. The coconut, the lemon, the sandalwood were mere props in a deadly game. The police arrive, and the scene confirms their worst fears. This is no accident, no natural death. Muneyamma has been poisoned. Cyanide, the same silent killer that has claimed others before her, has ended her life in that very room. As they look closer, they find the guest register. Lakshmi, posing under an alias, has signed in as a mother and daughter, a false identity that masks her true intentions. The inspector's suspicion is immediate. This is not an isolated case. Muneyamma's death is part of something larger, something far more sinister. Back in Chikka, Bomasandra, Muneyamma's son, Anjanappa, begins to worry. It has been days since he has heard from his mother, and now there is no word, no sign. When the knock finally comes at his door, it isn't his mother returning. It is the police. The inspector hands Anjanappa photographs of the body, and his worst fears come true. His mother, the woman he had loved, is gone. Muneyamma is dead. The jewelry Muneyamma was wearing when she left for the temple, that too is gone. The little pieces of her life have vanished without a trace. Chapter 5. Pillamma. Just 5 days after the tragic death of Muneyamma, Mallika, who thought she had escaped the law's grasp barely, sets her sights on another victim. This time her prey is Pillamma, a devout priestess whose life of faith leads her straight into Mallika's cunning trap. In the tranquil town of Tumkur district, Karnataka, Pillamma is a beloved figure at the Kempamma temple. At 60, Pillamma is a beautiful woman whose life has been dedicated to her faith. She is known for her tireless service to the temple and its community. For years now, she has dreamed of one thing and one thing only: building a new arch at the temple, a symbol of her devotion and a tribute to the god she has worshipped her entire life. Enter Mallika, calling herself Lakshmi this time, a woman who seems to appear in Pillamma's life like an answer to her prayers. With soft words and a calm demeanor, Lakshmi promises to sponsor the new arch, the very dream Pillamma had cherished for so long. Quote, "I will sponsor the new arch for this temple, and not just that, I will perform a special, you guessed it, Mandala Puja to ensure the gods bless this endeavor." End quote. Another Mandala Puja, a feared phrase now. For Pillamma, this is too good to be true. A stranger offering to help her fulfill a lifelong dream without asking for anything in return? Grateful tears fill her eyes. But when Pillamma asks why the puja can't be performed at the Kempamma temple itself, Lakshmi has an answer ready. One that seems guided by divine will. Quote, "The gods have led me to perform the puja at the Vaidyanatheshwara temple near Madurai." End quote. This revered temple on the banks of the Shimsha river is dedicated to Lord Shiv, known for granting wishes and curing ailments. Pillamma, devout as ever, accepts this divine instruction without question. The two women travel together, arriving at the Vaidyanatheshwara temple, where Mallika's mask of kindness remains intact. She rents a room for Pillamma at the choultry near the temple, assuring her that the gods will hear her prayers. But what Pillamma doesn't realize is that she isn't about to see her dreams realized. She is about to meet her end. Under the guise of spirituality, Mallika lures Pillamma into a vulnerable position. At the temple, surrounded by sacred chants and offerings, Pillamma feels at peace, her heart open to the blessings she thinks are soon to come. But what is found later is Pillamma's body left behind, and the dream of the new arch never comes to fruition. The authorities begin to notice a disturbing pattern. Between 1999 and 2007, 5 murders have been reported across 6 districts of Karnataka: Bangalore City, Tumkur, Bangalore Rural, Kolar, Mysore, and Mandya. In fact, when the police begin investigating this case, they find that there are 8 murders just in 2007. Not all of them are investigated, but they are all till date attributed to Mallika. Ash, one observation about Pillamma. She wasn't your typical desperate religious person. She wasn't doing this for something in return.
Right.
She was in fact doing this to give something.
Right.
And in her case, I don't think it's her desperation that was exploited. It was her optimism. It was her kindness that was exploited. And that sort of struck a different nerve altogether.
Right. In some way or shape or form, it's all devotion that's getting exploited.
True, it's fate. Yeah.
And in this particular situation, it's very directly that devotion.
It's very directly
it's
that
the
devotion.
Want to express that devotion that got exploited, which is very sad.
All these cases by the police initially had been dismissed as unnatural deaths, but something doesn't add up. The victims are all older women, deeply religious, and have one thing in common. They were all last seen with a kind-hearted stranger who disappears after their deaths. Jewelry thefts follow every case. They know that the kind stranger needs to be nabbed. Chapter 6. Nagaveni. It is this crime that draws the attention of the authorities, connecting the scattered pieces of evidence that have eluded them for years. Mallika, who has evaded justice time and again, doesn't realize that this might be her last murder, her last puja, if you may. Her carefully crafted mask of benevolence cracks wide open. Nagaveni, a 30-year-old woman from Hebel, has lived her life under the cruel weight of one constant reminder: she can't have children. Her marriage, strained and full of whispered judgments, has never known the joy of a child. The people around her mercilessly call her Banjaru or barren. She longs for nothing more than the warmth of a child in her arms. During this time of desperate hope, a kind stranger enters her life, this time under the alias of Savitramma.
Aryan, obviously, we've said this before in this episode, it's devotion that's getting exploited. But honestly, so much of this is societal pressure.
I was about to say.
In a couple of these cases now. And it's so unfortunate. And we've seen this play out in our own homes when we attend weddings or family gatherings. Comments about one's marriage, comments about one's age before they have a child, comments about one's weight.
Yeah.
It's just so common. And the fact that they gave her that name, they call her barren.
Barren.
What a horrible description of a woman who can't have a child.
I think it is so, for women that cannot have children or don't want to have children, in India it feels such a hard thing to be because, being a woman is almost equated with having a child.
Right.
And so you are, you're failing your societal or biological duties and prerogative. And those women in their 30s without kids in India, even in urban and forget rural areas, even in urban areas are castigated.
Absolutely.
As, with those, it might not be as direct, but there are those, sneering comments. This is not to say one is better than the other. I mean, I want kids. So, but
it's a personal choice.
It's a personal choice and should be treated as such.
One's own journey. And I really hope that we as a generation of young people who've grown up seeing our mothers, our sisters be commented on this way, perhaps in many different kinds of situations. I hope we grow up to be better adults where we know that there is a line of conversation in public, there is a decorum to be met, there is a certain respect and decency we owe each other, no matter what one's life journey is like.
Yeah. And I hope that decency is innate. It's not a PC decency. It's one that you truly understand that people can be happy. Single people can be happy, childless yet married. People can be happy in all kinds of configurations, and the way you have been taught how to live life is not the only way to live life. And again, this is stark delineation from what we were talking about, but I think we feel truly about this, and I think it's these societal problems that eventually lead somebody to capture onto whether it's faith, whether it's a cult, whether it is whatever it may be. These things we latch onto them because of some problems precipitated by the social fabric.
Yeah, for sure.
The kind stranger Savitramma befriends Nagaveni with promises of a solution to her pain, offering the very thing she's been yearning for: a child. Her words are soothing, crafted to wrap around Nagaveni's heart like a warm blanket. I can help you, she says. I'll perform a special, you guessed it again, Mandala Puja, one that guarantees success. You will have the child you've always wanted. End quote. Nagaveni, desperate for a miracle, eagerly asks, quote, is there a guarantee? Savitra Amma reassures her, her voice calm and convincing. Guaranteed? I've performed this puja many times and it has always worked. You will be blessed. End quote. Nagaveni asks the next question quickly. Shall we do the puja at my home? Savitra Amma, however, has a different plan. No, we'll go to the Ghati Subramanya temple. It's a sacred place, renowned for blessing childless couples. It's where your wish will be fulfilled. End quote. The Ghati Subramanya temple, over 600 years old, stands as a symbol for those seeking blessings for children. Its long history and connection to divine powers have earned it a place of reverence. Thousands visit it every year, and Nagaveni is no exception. She trusts Mallika and follows her without question. At the temple, Mallika's mask of kindness remains intact. She leads Nagaveni to a quiet place and in the early hours of the morning, under the faint glow of dawn, offers her a drink, a special potion that will make her wish come true. But Nagaveni doesn't know that the drink is laced with cyanide, a poison that will quickly snatch her life away. Nagaveni, filled with trust and hope, drinks the water. The poison takes hold almost immediately. As she collapses to the ground, Mallika watches silently, her calm exterior betraying the evil within. This is the end of Nagaveni's story, but Mallika's twisted promises have been fulfilled. Nagaveni will never be called barren again. After Nagaveni's life drains away, Mallika, cold and methodical, strips her of her, you guessed it, gold, jewelry, her earrings, bangles, even her Mangal Sutra, and disappears into the shadows, leaving behind a lifeless body and shattered dreams. Mallika has done it again. But this time, something is different. The authorities are starting to notice a pattern. A series of murders over the years, all targeting older women, all involving promises of divine rituals, and all ending with stolen jewelry. The authorities, piecing the clues together, are closing in on Mallika. Her luck is running out. When Nagaveni's body is discovered on 18 December 2007, it wasn't just another case to the Inspector S.K. Umesh. From Kalasipalayam police station, he immediately recognizes a chilling connection. The murders happening at temples across the region. A pattern that had eluded others is now staring him in the face. He knows it won't be long before the threads of this mystery finally tie together. The case takes a dramatic turn when K.V. Sharat Chandra, the Deputy Commissioner of Police at the time, begins sifting through the evidence with his team. In an interview with Ashfaq Masoodi of Mint on 14th October 2016, Chandra recalls the painstaking process of piecing together the puzzle. Quote, first we analyzed the murders. All were happening in temples. We tracked the days of the week, the profiles of those visiting, the rooms rented, the neighbors, everything. End quote. It's clear now that these aren't random incidents. The police begin retracing the last steps of each victim, contacting families to find out who the women had been spending their time with, who had accompanied them to these temples. And the breakthrough comes with a chilling realization. All of the victims had met a woman before they were found dead. The initial assumptions had pointed to a burly man with a criminal history, but the discovery of this woman as the common link is a shocking twist. The authorities are now grappling with a new terrifying possibility: India's first female serial killer. With no concrete evidence linking the crimes to a specific individual, the police expand their investigation, scouring the victim's cell phone records. But there's nothing solid to go on. The media frenzy surrounding the murders intensifies, and the police issue strict warnings to local jewelers to be on the lookout for stolen goods. It's a last-ditch effort to cut off Mallika's supply chain, her ability to sell the stolen jewelry. By this point, Mallika is in a bind. With the police tightening their grip, she can no longer unload the goods she accumulated from her victims. The walls are closing in. Then on 30th December, the breakthrough comes. A tip-off leads the Kalasipalayam police to a bus stand where a woman is seen attempting to sell used cell phones. As Umesh and his team arrive, they spot a woman, around 45 years old, trying to hawk 2 phones to bystanders. They compare her to a sketch drawn from eyewitness accounts. It matches. This is the woman they've been waiting for. The arrest is swift, but Mallika, realizing her game is up, tries to flee. The police, however, are prepared. They corner her before the crowd can realize who she is. Quote, "We need to get her out of here before the mob catches on," Umesh whispers to his team as they swiftly move her to safety. In her possession are items that seal her fate: a cross, 2 mobile phones, a keychain from room number 28 of the Siddheshwara Swami temple, a pawn shop receipt, a Godrej key, and 2 SIM cards. Evidence that will expose her as the killer. As the interrogation unfolds, Mallika begins to unravel her dark past. She speaks of a transformation from a poor, humble woman to the notorious cyanide killer. The police have now christened her Cyanide Mallika, a name that still haunts the nation. The once innocuous KD Kempamma is gone, replaced by a name synonymous with a cold-blooded murderer. Her trial begins soon after, and the charge sheet for the murder of Muneyamma is filed. 39 witnesses take the stand, each one adding weight to the case against her. One of the first is Anjanappa, Muneyamma's son, who spoke with his mother about a woman named Lakshmi who had convinced her to visit this temple for the puja. This is the key that connects the dots. The woman posing as Lakshmi is obviously Mallika. The keychain from room number 28 at the Siddheshwara Swami temple, the receipt from Mangalram bankers, each piece of evidence points directly to Mallika. On 15 December 2007, Mallika had pawned a pair of earrings for Rs 3,000. The jewellery is identified by Muneyamma's son as belonging to his mother, the same earrings that had been found missing from the body in the photographs. The pawn shop owner, Behram Chaudhary, confirms the transaction, further tightening the noose around Mallika's neck. When the recovered jewellery is presented in court, it's clear Mallika has murdered Muneyamma just as she had murdered others before her. But the twists aren't over yet. Despite the mounting evidence, Mallika's arrest for the 6 murders is just the beginning. As news of her capture spreads, police stations across the region begin comparing notes, and that's when a 7th victim emerges, Renuka. The discovery of Renuka's murder linked to Mallika's killing spree leaves the investigators stunned. What had started as a series of isolated deaths now becomes a chilling, interconnected web. Mallika's descent into infamy is complete. Perhaps a peek into Mallika's past offers some answers, some explanation as to how the first Indian female serial killer came to be. Kagalipura, a village nestled in the suburban outskirts of Bangalore, was Mallika's birthplace. The village, named after the acacia tree, Kagali, that grew in abundance, was a place that offered little to its poorest residents. Mallika's early years were shaped by the sting of poverty. Her parents, unable to afford her education past the 5th grade, watched their daughter grow up in a world where survival often meant scraping together enough just to make it through one more day. And it was one incident that would forever be etched in Mallika's memory. As a 10-year-old, she went to the local grocer with a request for credit, hoping to bring home some rice. Quote, "Tell your mother that I'm no longer giving her things on credit. If she can't afford rice, she could cook with sawdust." The jeering crowd only added to her humiliation, their laughter a cruel reminder of her poverty. She ran, her tears mingling with the sting of their mockery. From that moment, Mallika's bitterness towards her circumstances only deepened. She dreamed of wealth, of gold, of a life where she could never again be taunted by the lack of her means. But dreams alone wouldn't fill her empty stomach. As she grew, Mallika worked as a maid, doing menial tasks for others while secretly nurturing the ambition to one day wear fine saris and adorn herself in gold. Her marriage to Devraj, a tailor at the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bangalore, initially seemed like the escape, but the harsh realities of life and her constant dissatisfaction with their modest living conditions soon suffocated her. In time, Mallika's greed took root, and she began stealing from the homes where she worked. It wasn't long before her ambition led her to the fateful crime in Bidari, where she was arrested for attempting to steal jewelry. Prison time, which might have reformed others, only fueled Mallika's determination. She emerged from the incarceration more resolved than ever to get rich, starting a chit fund that ultimately failed. Her marriage, already on the rocks, crumbled under the weight of her reckless pursuits. Devraj, fed up with Mallika's behavior, sent her away in 1998. It was then, alone and desperate, that Mallika began her path toward a darker future. She assisted a goldsmith and learned about a deadly substance, potassium cyanide, that would become her weapon of choice. The discovery sparked an idea that would change her life forever, and the lives of many thereafter. Armed with the poison, she began targeting women in temples, using their vulnerabilities against them. No matter how deep the pain or the hardships of her past, her actions were never justified. No amount of suffering could excuse the life she took or the innocence she stole. In 2012, the trial of KD Kempamma began. The courtroom was packed with tension, the air thick with anticipation and disbelief. Journalists, family members of the victims, and curious onlookers filled every seat, all eager to see the woman who had terrorized Karnataka for nearly a decade held accountable for her horrific crimes. Kempamma, sitting silently in the dock, showed no emotion as the prosecutor laid out the damning evidence against her. The courtroom was filled with chilling details: the cyanide-laced water used to kill her victims, the gold jewelry she had stolen, and the carefully crafted role she had played in luring each woman in their death. The victims were vulnerable, emotional women, many of whom had visited temples seeking solace for their personal struggles, unknowingly walking into a deadly death trap. The prosecutor made it clear that the evidence was irrefutable. Fingerprints found on the cyanide packets, eyewitness testimony that identified her as Lakshmi, and the crucial pawn shop receipts linking her directly to the stolen jewelry. Even more devastating were the testimonies from the families of the victims, each one describing the pain and disbelief they felt when their loved ones went missing, only to later discover they had been brutally murdered. Kempamma was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. The sentence was a moment of justice for the families of the victims, but it was not the final word on her case. In an unexpected twist, Kempamma's death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, sparking heated debates. Some saw this as a failure of the justice system, feeling that a woman responsible for so much suffering deserved to face the ultimate punishment. Others argued that her life imprisonment provided an opportunity to study her psychology and the factors that had driven her to commit such heinous crimes. For the victims' families, however, this was little comfort. The years spent chasing justice had taken their toll. Kempamma's punishment, in their eyes, would never be enough to undo the suffering she had inflicted. Her victims just wanted kids, or blessings, hell, even hope. All they got was cyanide-laced holy water.
If you like what we do here at Desi Studios and absolutely love what we're wearing today, this is merch you can go buy all for yourself.
You can buy this Desi Crime merch in our YouTube store on the link down below at Kadak Merch. Keep the engines at Desi Studios rolling so we can pay our videographer right behind the camera to make these amazing episodes just for you.